Another day, another live stream. Hopefully everyone's doing good. Let's check this out here. Okay. We're good. I think we're live. Some confirmation in the chat. Hopefully everyone's doing good today. Got a cool topic today, huh? Excellent. Excellent. Mr. Powers is here. Scrobbler, thank you for popping on. Irwin, glad you can make it. Excellent. Mr. Cole. Okay, so last week, hey Franco. Hey Dave. So last week, during last week's hangout on Friday, right? You're joining the hangouts, right? A user Wolf from Germany, and awesome guy, beautiful design. If you haven't checked out his talk, was it last year? The year before? He did a talk at the summit on timeless web design, and yeah, check that out. Really, really good stuff. Super talented guy, amazing photographer. Hey, while we're talking about the summit, hey, go get your ticket, summit.weavers.space. It is in 2 months. 2 months from almost today. I think it's 2 months exactly from today. Yeah, we're doing the conference virtual summit, 3 days of just learning about web design and building cool things with stacks and all kinds of awesomeness. So, last year someone said, Scott, if you're here, I'll give Scott the credit. He said that the summit is the best add-on in the entire Stacks community, right? So I thought that was a pretty cool little testimony, right? So yeah, check out the summit. It's $99. You get in for 3 days of just fun awesomeness. It's all virtual. You don't need to go anywhere. And it is very interactive as well. So we have speakers. I think I have 15 speakers. Oh man, I don't remember now. Well, I'll be sending out some emails hopefully by the end of this week. It was my goal to send it out last week, but hey, stuff got in the way. So yeah, check it out. We also do interacting with fellow weavers, right? So yeah, it's not just sit there, and it's not like watching a YouTube video or watching this live stream where you're just sitting and watching and consuming and maybe have a little chat room. You actually get to interact. We bring in other users, your fellow community. A lot of people here watching this live stream are going to be speaking this year. So I know Chris is going to give a talk this year. So yeah, it's fun to learn from other people, right? Not just always hearing from me or whomever, right? So also have Isaiah coming. Hopefully we should get a sneak of Stacks app. Yeah, it's going to be super awesome. Can't wait. So yeah, join in, and hopefully we'll see you guys at the summit. Okay, back to business. What was I talking about? Last week's hangout. So last week's hangout, we started talking about privacy, and Wolf was asking, I can't use Font Awesome because of GDPR or DSGVO or all this stuff. And I was like, wait, what? Why can't you use Font Awesome? And he was like, oh, because it's getting loaded from other places, I can't use it. And I was like, whoa. That's a misconception. So I think what I'm going to address first is, a lot of people think, they hear, you can't load Font Awesome, or you can't load jQuery, and because those are against GDPR or all these privacy laws. And that's just not true. It's not the libraries themselves that violate GDPR. Okay. For the rest of this, I'm just going to probably say GDPR. Okay. Instead of I know there's multiple of them. There's DSVGO, not DSGVO. Man, why didn't they, if this is a web thing, why have anything that's close to SVG in it? Jesus. Okay. So I'll just say GDPR or privacy or whatever. But these libraries themselves don't violate any privacy laws. Okay. Having an icon on your website doesn't violate any privacy laws. Loading jQuery, which is just a JavaScript library, doesn't violate any privacy laws. What could potentially violate this is loading these libraries from what's called a CDN, okay, a content delivery network. And the reason this is because you're now referencing this library, a JavaScript file or font files or whatever, from an external source, okay, be it Google, or there's tons of different CDNs around the world. Cloudflare is one. Some of them are privacy centric, some are not, right? So just, you can't blanketly say all CDNs are bad. They're not, right? I mean, like for example, Cloudflare does take privacy, seriously. So there are some CDNs that might not, and there are some CDNs that do. So you can't even do a blanket statement against all CDNs. But if you wanted to be safe, loading libraries from your own website is a safe bet. So if you're loading Font Awesome from your website, if you're loading jQuery from your website, if you're loading anything else from your website, you have control of that. That means the browser fully trusts it, as long as and most Stacks users aren't, have any custom malicious code that's going to track and put everything in a database or whatever, right? As long as you're not tracking users' information, you're golden, right? The scare here is when you're loading Font Awesome or jQuery from, let's say, Google. I'm going to pick on Google a lot today because, I don't trust Google myself. I don't use Chrome. I don't use google.com for search anymore. I've never used Gmail. Well, maybe way back in the day I used it, but right. I mean, so I don't trust Google either. So Google Analytics, stuff like that, right? There's a lot to be said about if you're loading these libraries from Google then can track, let's say, the user's IP address, and based on that IP or other information about the request, because Google's all over the world, they can like track that user, right? They know they visited this website from this IP address or something like that, right? And so that's the problem. That's the crux of what all these privacy laws are about. It's about protecting your users' information. So by hedging bets, not loading any content from these external domains, okay, trying to load as much as you can from your own domain where you have control of everything, will keep you in compliance with all of these laws. Okay, so without further ado, enough of me talking. Let's dive in and start looking at some of this stuff. Okay, should have had RapidWeaver open already. I thought I had it open. Oops, my bad. Oops, my hold on one second. I gotta fix my thing here. What's going on? Oh, there it goes. So you guys can see my beautiful face here. There we go. Now I'm back. Okay. I missed that was got delinked. Okay. I launched RapidWeaver. Where'd it go? Okay, here we go. So I'm gonna be a side note, later on we're gonna be looking at Cookie Jar and a bunch of other stacks. Okay. And I'm just gonna be using the Cookie Jar 3 demo file. More on that later. Let's wait for good old stacks to load. Do 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 do. Sometime today. Let's go, man. Okay, cool. So first off, let's start dealing with controlling whether or not some of these libraries are loaded from a CDN or loaded from your domain. In particular, let's talk about common ones, which is Font Awesome, as well as jQuery. So if you go into your stacks preferences, again, you click on the little button in the toolbar for stacks, and you go to, hold on, I always forget where these are. Okay, here. If you go to the HTML tab here, you'll see that there is this for CDN, okay? And I'm pretty certain that all of these are off by default, okay? So as long as all of these are off, as long as a developed stack is doing it properly, it will never load jQuery or Font Awesome or any of these other libraries from a CDN. Okay, they will always be loaded from your website. Okay, and I should add. Let me just quickly add here. None of my stacks, none of them, load external libraries from a CDN or from my website or anything. Everything is loaded from your website. Okay, unless you have like I guess some things that are obvious. A YouTube embed. Obviously, my YouTube stack loads stuff from YouTube because I have to load the embed from YouTube, right? Okay, but there's nothing outside of the obvious things like that that are loaded from an external library or website. Okay, I go through great extents. Okay, I work really hard to make sure that everything is loaded from your website as much as possible. Okay, so with that said, not all developers do that. Okay, I don't have any examples. I've seen stacks from other developers out there that load their own version of jQuery, sometimes from a CDN, sometimes not. I've seen other stack developers load Font Awesome instead of using the one that comes with stacks or anything like that. So even if you check that preference, again, I think that's pretty uncommon. I've seen it though. Okay. So yes, I will teach you also in a second to know if something is loaded from an external domain or if it's loaded from your own domain. Okay, so let's dive back in. So yes, I just want to say there are some stacks out there that some developers will load their own version of jQuery. I think a lot of those developers have kind of gone by the wayside. But hey, it happens. Let's go ahead and I'm going to preview this in the browser. It's easiest to preview a page in a browser. We're looking at the cookie jar demo. Let's just ignore cookie jar for now. We're just looking at a web page. Okay. And if you open up the developer inspector, okay, and let's go to the source tab. Okay. Now, in this tab, you will see all the assets that are loaded onto a page. And if it's loaded from an external domain, it'll actually list it here. Okay. Another thing you can do is if you go to the network tab, if we go to all resources and you can say refresh, okay, it tells you the domain that it's getting loaded from. So inside preview, it's getting loaded from 127.0.0.1, which is essentially saying that, yes, this is getting loaded from your website. When you publish this, it'll get loaded from your website. Okay, let's go ahead and look at example. I'm just going to click accept on this really quick. And that this loads a Google font. So here's an example you'll see in the network tab that this asset's getting loaded from Google. This asset's getting loaded from GStatic, which is another Google domain. Okay, so depending on your privacy laws or where you are, you might not want that. Okay, we'll talk about how, ways to get around some of these common things as well. Okay, now if we go back to the sources tab, you'll also see in this, you'll see that the domain gets listed here. So if you go to sources, you'll see everything. You'll see that this particular CSS file is loaded from fonts.googleapis.com. Okay, so that's an indication whether or not something is getting loaded from a CDN. Okay, so let's go ahead and just for fun, I'm going to check some of these. I'm going to check in a couple of those. Let's preview that. Okay. And what we should see now, oh, this particular theme, oh, this page doesn't have any stacks that use jQuery. So here, let's chuck a stack on this page just for fun that I know uses jQuery. None of my most recent stacks even use jQuery anymore either. So let's see. How about Impact? I think Impact uses jQuery. We're just gonna chuck Impact on this page. Here, I'll throw one image in there. Doesn't really matter what it is. All right. All right. There we go. Okay. So now that I have a stack on the page that uses jQuery, we'll see that jQuery is getting loaded from ajax.googleapis.com, right? And again, if we went to this network tab and we were to reload, we'd also see, oh, look, Font Awesome is getting loaded from a CDN. The Google APIs, that's from my cookie jar demo. Okay. But we'll see a lot of these are starting to get loaded from external domains, and that could be a concern for you. So let's go ahead and I'm going to keep all of this on the page. I'm going to go ahead and turn off these CDNs. Okay. Let's preview. And if we'll see now, all of those, with the exception of these font loading, are getting loaded from my local website. Pretty cool, right? Okay. Steven asks Google Web Fonts. Yes. So we will definitely talk about Google Fonts because I know that's a big concern for a lot of people. Now there are other font services out there, such as Adobe Fonts. There's also Hoffler, right? You should look into their policies on what they do, on whether or not they comply with GDPR and things of that nature. Okay, so I know that I believe both, as long as your account permits it, can actually download the fonts. So we're going to be talking about that. Actually, that's a solution for Google Fonts. All Google Fonts can actually be downloaded, and then you can load them locally on your website. Okay, so hopefully I think that solves a lot of problem. I know there was a lot of confusion about this particular thing, and kind of opened the eyes of some users on my Hangout last week, where they're like, "Oh, I didn't know that." Like, it's okay to load these libraries as long as we're loading them locally. Okay. So, what are some other things that we can do instead of loading? Let's start tackling fonts. Okay, so we talked about Font Awesome. Now, if you're using Foundation 6 and you're loading Font Awesome 5, that never uses a CDN. That's something that's baked into Foundation, and it always loads from your website. Always. Okay. This Font Awesome that's baked into Stacks, that's Font Awesome version 4. Okay. So just to let you know that. Okay, fonts. Let's talk about fonts. So Google Fonts is obviously a very popular way of loading fonts, mostly because, well, it's free, right? So let's go to fonts.google.com. Okay. So with Google Fonts, okay, you can go ahead and select a font, right? So let's, here's actually the font I'm loading in the demos for Cookie Jar, just because it's very, apparent. You can see it's very different. Okay. And if you go here, you can go ahead and let's add, a font. And then if I do, they always change. Where's the little view all style? No. I think, what? They make it so, like, I think it's not very usable in Safari. I need to load Chrome. I think that was the trick. Darn Google Fonts. They're discriminating against Safari. All right. Where's Chrome? I know. Oh, here it comes. I only load Chrome when I absolutely, and whenever I manage my YouTube channel, I do, and whenever I have to go to Google Fonts, I do, because. So go to fonts.google.com. Oh, look, see, look, now it, now it comes up over here. Okay. This is what wasn't showing up in Safari. Very interesting. Okay. So again, I went to Silkscreen and it has this little selected family thing. And essentially what you can do is you copy this code, right? So this code over here is what you would load into your page. Okay. Or if you're using something like Font Pro or Foundation 6 swatches, those help you out because you just need to put the font name and the font size, or not the font size, the font weight, and you're good to go. It does all this stuff for you. Okay. However, obviously we've seen that loading this font loads it from Google, and that could potentially break your cookie laws, or let's say maybe even it doesn't. I'll have to admit I'm thinking that the world's in such a hoopla that Google is no longer tracking it. I don't know, but I don't trust Google either. So if you don't want to put this in your page and then have a cookie message, the other option is to just download the font files. Okay, so on every Google font, they're all available for free. And guess what? You could just download it. There's a download family button here, and it downloads it to your machine. I already downloaded it here. Okay, and you will see that we have. There it goes. I have the Silkscreen font in bold and regular right here. Okay. Now I did notice that this is loading. It does download the TTF version of this font. It doesn't. It's kind of a little iffy of Google here, but I think if we go to let's quit Chrome. Uses up a lot of resources anyway. Let's go back to Safari. Okay, there is hold on, let me find it. I didn't notice that when you click the download that it actually downloads TTF versions of instead of WAF files. Okay. There is is it this? Where are they all? All right, let's find Silkscreen, which is the one. So all these font files are stored on Google, or I'm sorry, are stored on GitHub. Man, there's a lot. All right, let's go here. Let's go here. Oh, it does have the TTFs. So this particular font only has TTF files. Okay. Interesting that when I here, we're gonna play around. I hadn't planned on going down this rabbit hole, but let's go down it. Okay. So this Silkscreen is this font on the page. And if we look at fonts, see it loads the WAF2 file. Okay. So what you might want to do is here, get this URL, right? And then you can put it in your browser and download this particular resource. Or you might be able to just right click and say save file, right? And that's the WAF version of this particular font. Okay. So Google, they try to make you go through hoops. They give you the TTF version, which there are other various apps out there that or web services that can convert a TTF font to a WAF file, but Google makes you jump through some hoops to do that. Okay. So yeah, in the browser inspector, you can, download the WAF version of that, which the reason you'd want to use WAF versus TTF, let's see, I don't know what browser support for TTF is. Browser support's really good for TTF. Okay, but TTF files are a little bit bigger than WAF files. WAF files have better compression. So there we go. The TTF file will work, but the WAF file is going to be better. Okay. And WAF, let's look at WAF 2. Yeah, and WAF 2 support it everywhere except for IE now. Okay. So yeah, WAF 2 is just better a font file support for more compressed. I think I have some videos on the Font Pro page about converting fonts and stuff like that. You can check those out. I don't want to go too far down the font rabbit hole here. Okay. Now, once you have the font files downloaded, obviously you can upload them to your server, or you can add them into RapidWeaver resources. It's all up to you. Okay. And at that point, you can use something like Font Pro. If you go to font families, right? And then you can do web fonts. So then at this point, you can upload it. You put the URL to your normal and bold and all that jazz. Okay. And that will load it in. And these will load from your domain, right? As long as the URLs that you put in here are the URLs to the font files on your website. Okay. So that is how we can get around Google Fonts. A couple extra steps. We need to download the files and then use something like Font Pro to then load that font file onto your web page. Okay. Hopefully that answers some questions about fonts. Okay. Again, I didn't have time to look at the research for, now I know Hoffler, as long as you have a Hoffler account, you can actually, they support downloading and loading the fonts from your domain. Okay. I actually do that on Weaverspace. Okay. The font files for Weaverspace, like Operator, which is the Weaverspace font, is loaded directly from my domain, right? They're not even loaded from Hoffler at all. So as long as you purchase that and subscribe to Hoffler, you can do that. In terms of Adobe, I haven't looked at that. If anybody knows, let us know in the chat what their kind of GDPR policy is. They do load the font files from their servers though. So I'm not sure exactly what their policy is in terms of privacy for end users. But from what I understand, they do offer, again, I think it depends on the level of your account to download the font files that you can use on a website, potentially. Okay. All right. So we talked about libraries. We talked about Font Awesome. We talked about fonts. Okay. Now let's dive into displaying like user consent. So if you do need to load some of these resources from an external domain, that includes Google Analytics, right? So if you're loading Google Analytics, if you're loading Facebook pixels or LinkedIn tracking or Twitter tracking because you want to do ads on either Google ads or Facebook ads or Twitter ads or whatever, okay? Insert evil tracking platform here. You're gonna have to have something like Cookie Jar, okay? Now, I'll be upfront. There are other options out there. Cookie Jar, I think is pretty cool, especially this latest version that I just shipped today. Okay, Cookie Jar version 2, it wasn't the easiest to use. Okay, I have been happy with it for a long time, and I knew I wanted to do this live stream, so I pushed all weekend to make sure I got version 3 done for us today. Okay. But with that said, Carl has another great stack that is very granular. I think it's called Privacy Center or something like that. It's on rwpro.dev. Okay. So yeah, check out Privacy Center. He has much more granular control. Okay. I haven't used the stack, but here, let's go ahead. Here, why not? Let's show Carl's site here. Let's go to RW. I think if you just go to his homepage, it's right there, right? Oh, here, I think I already accepted his cookie thing before. So, oh well. Now let's see if I go to his page. Privacy Center. darn it, I think I previously visited this page and clicked enable all, so it remembered my consent. But here's a picture. Basically, it allows you to like really fine grain control. The end user can choose, what he can include. I'm not sure how it's accomplished in the stack, but you have this fine grain control. I'll admit, I think this is way more than most people need. Okay. I think most people just want to click OK and get on with their web browsing experience. Okay. But privacy control, it's nice. It gets very granular control over things. I'm not sure of its other features, but today, right now, we're going to look at Cookie Jar. Okay. And this is my implementation. So Cookie Jar ships with 2 stacks now. Okay. I'm looking at version 3. If you have version 2, you can get version 3 now. I literally launched it like 20 minutes ago. And you get discounted upgrade and all that jazz. Okay. So completely revamped. There's 2 stacks. There's Cookie Jar content and Cookie Jar. Okay. And let's start off with this Cookie Jar stack. In here, you can load whatever you want. Just paste in, whether this be your Google Analytics code. Here, I'm loading that font from Google Fonts. Now, the reason I'm doing this is in this demo, it's super easy to see when a font is loaded on the page because you see all the fonts change, right? So in this demo, I'm just loading that silk screen font, and then I'm applying it to everything on the page, okay? But in here, this is where you would put in, again, all of your various cookie generated code, add embeds, all that stuff, analytics, everything. It will support total CMS macros. So if you want to store this content in total CMS, you can just put the macro in there. It should work great. Okay. There are essentially two options here that you have. First off, when you add this to the page, click this render and edit mode. It'll just make things a little bit faster for you. Okay. So it's checked on by default. I've made a feature request of stacks. This particular stylo setting can only be on by default. So turn that off. Okay. If you see what this does, in here, it actually loads the font inside of edit mode. And while you might think that's cool, that's going to slow down edit mode a lot. So turn that off. Okay. So there we go. Next, these top 2 settings. First, we have remember across settings. So this is remembering your user's consent, whether or not they accepted or declined. The default option is remember across sessions. That means even if you close the browser session and go to that website again, it's going to remember your last decision. Okay, as long as you didn't like reset your browser or empty out all your cache. This even should persist cache emptying. Okay, but there are situations that it won't remember. Okay, you can also say remember for this session, meaning as soon as the user closes the browser and visits your site again, that starts a new session. It's going to ask them all over again. Now, there's also an implied consent option. Now, I did a little bit of research on this, and most countries do not allow implied consent any longer. Okay. With the exception of Italy and Spain, it seemed. Let me preface this with I am not an expert on any of these privacy laws. Do your own research for whatever country you are in. Okay. So checkbox that. Okay. I did do a little bit of research on the implied consent thing. And it seems like a gray area for Italy and Spain is that, as soon as a user like maybe does some initial scrolling, then they're implying that they're consenting to this because they've maybe ignored your warning that this has cookies. Okay. So, that does seem like a gray area. And it only seems to be, from what I've read this morning, Italy and Spain. But take that with a grain of salt. Do your own research. Okay. But what does implied consent do here? Implied consent means we're going to assume that you are going to accept our stuff first. So when you check this, let's go ahead and preview this page. what we'll see is that font is loaded by default. Oh, here, actually, let's clear my consent. That font is loaded by default. Now, if I decline, then the page will reload and then it's removed. Okay, but it's basically assuming consent up front. Okay, and it's the same as you've clicked accept. Right? So that's what implied consent means. If you turn that off and I load this page, let's go ahead and clear. Then by default, the content that you added to cookie jar is not loaded until the user actually clicks accept. And there we go. Okay, pretty cool. Now cookie jar has the ability, I have some various classes that you can do. And for this demo purpose, it's kind of cool. I have this clear button. So if you want to test around with things, let's say I want to decline, clear, I want to accept this, right? And you want to clear, stuff like that, right? So, yeah, it's pretty cool. This clear button will allow you to, kind of reset cookie jar's behavior, okay, which is nice. Okay, so that kind of goes over the cookie jar concept here, in terms of what's getting loaded. Here is a reference of all the classes that are accepted, and we'll go over these classes in a little bit, okay? Now, we have the cookie jar content stack, and this allows you to build your own consent window, right? Now, you can really build whatever you want, okay? I do supply a cookie jar decline and accept stacks that you can access from this little thing that you can add whatever button you want in it, okay? And it will turn that into an accept button and a decline button. You can really add whatever stacks. I just used default stacks here. So it's just a normal one column, the markdown stacks, and the stacks button stacks, okay? And built this out. But you can really build whatever layout you want, okay? And then what's special about this content stack, it allows you to like define the position. So if you want something, fixed to the bottom, and whenever you click an accept or decline button, that content stack will disappear. So it controls the visibility of when someone has declined or accepted content. Now, if you want full control and you don't want to have any of the cookie jar stacks themselves, okay, you can go ahead and go the full custom route. And so here's an example using Foundation 6, where essentially this uses implied consent by default. Let's clear consent. Here I built my own cookie jar, privacy statement, and yeah, it just uses a container. We have a dismiss button, so we can dismiss it. So there we go. I can just dismiss that. But you see, if I dismiss it, if I never clicked accept or decline, then it just comes back on page load. Okay, I can say decline this, and there we go. Right, I've declined it, so that content will never come back. And I've done this just by using the various classes that are inside the cookie jar stack. Okay, so we have cookie jar accept, cookie jar decline, cookie jar clear, cookie jar dismiss, and cookie jar content. Okay, now right now you can't customize these classes. These are just here so you can easily copy paste. However, I was talking with Davide yesterday about this, and he thought it would be interesting to have the ability to customize this, because at that point you can do maybe have multiple cookie jar instances on the page that will load different things based on different buttons getting clicked. I thought it was an interesting idea. So I might do that. Okay, it's pretty cool. So there we go. It might come into a future update, which would allow you to, I don't know, maybe do, I allow you to load Google Analytics, and then another instance where I could allow you to load something different, right? So it gets you maybe a little bit more granular control, and just by giving you the ability to customize these classes. Okay. Next, so when I built, now that we have this kind of this nice way of just having a nice site-wide instance of accepting and declining stuff, well, what about like things like YouTube embeds and stuff like that, right? And so my Embed stack that I released Did I reset last year or this year? I don't remember now. But Embed, I believe it was last year. Embed has always had the ability to optionally load the content via a button click. So it was obvious that we needed to just integrate Embed with Cookie Jar. So I shipped an update yesterday to Embed that integrates with Cookie Jar 3.0. Okay, so let's look at this page as an example. Oh, let's clear my consent. Okay, so here I Embed had a YouTube video, but I haven't accepted anything yet, right? So as soon as I click accept, it will then allow, if you see it, the font gets loaded, and it allowed my YouTube embed. Okay, so this is a way where we can, have a single integration with Cookie Jar to control all of our content with Embed. Now, Embed supports a lot more than just YouTube videos. It also supports, Google Maps. It supports Twitter embeds, a whole bunch of other stuff. So check out Embed if you're not familiar with it. It allows you just to do various embeds from various online services, and you can control whether or not those are loaded or not now with Cookie Jar. Okay. Also, there was some asking like, well, what if, I want to let the user know that a video should be here. In Embed, you can supply default content, and then you can add data in here. You can even add maybe an accept button in there, right, with Cookie Jar. So you can add a Cookie Jar accept button in there. That would then, accept, and then it could reload the page and actually load the YouTube video. Actually, it doesn't need to reload the page. It'll just do it dynamically on the spot. Okay, so that's interesting as well. So you can have an accept button inside of Embed. Right here, here for fun. Let's just do it. Let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so there, let's clear my decision. Okay, so you could have, I have this accept button, but you could have like a little blurb of text that say, hey, you have to accept us, to the ability. I click on accept, and that will then trigger Cookie Jar. It'll load everything, right? And then the button no longer shows where the video was. So pretty cool there. Okay. So yeah, Embed, super nice integration with Cookie Jar. I like it. Okay. Next up is Raincheck. Now, Raincheck I definitely launched, I think, a month ago. Okay. And Raincheck allows you to dynamically load any content, either on a delay. It was built for performance. Okay. It was built for dynamically loading content after everything else is loaded on the page in the background or on scroll. Okay. So I added a new option here to load based on Cookie Jar. Okay, so here I just have it an image as an example inside Raincheck. And if we preview the page, let's go ahead and clear my consent. Okay, as you see here, that content is not loaded at all on the page. And I go ahead and click accept, and voila, the content is loaded. Okay. Now, Raincheck, all the caveats of Raincheck, check out the Raincheck videos and docs and all that jazz. Not every stack will be guaranteed to work inside Raincheck. Okay. So like if you have a complex, slider stack in there or something like that, it might not load properly. So, Raincheck is a very cool stack. It's awesome. But yeah, it might not work 100% all the time, depending on what you add into it. Okay, but I think having this Cookie Jar integration with it is a nice to have. Okay, so there's another cool thing there. And I think we're winding down. Kind of went through a lot here. Let's look at the questions here. From Adobe support. Okay, thanks, Mr. Len. Can I host the web fonts on their own server? No. Adobe doesn't offer the ability to locally host fonts. There you go. So thanks for looking that up for us, Mr. Len. Willie says Cookie Jar works well for him. Thank you. Is the page fully refreshed, or is the container Cookie Jar protects? Okay, so if you click accept, the entire page isn't reloaded. If you do a clear, it is reloaded. And if you do a decline, it depends. If you have implied consent turns on, Decline also reloads the page. If you do not have implied consent turned on, decline just removes the cookie jar content stack from the page. So it doesn't reload the page. So there are a couple situations, it just depends. The clear button does, and sometimes the decline button does, but only if you have implied consent turned on. What do you put in cookie jar if you want to be using F6 to load your Google fonts from your server? So if you're loading Google fonts, so let's go ahead and load, here's a page with, so if you're loading Google font, okay, if you're using this, okay, then, yeah, there isn't the ability to integrate this stack yet with cookie jar. I'll have to think about that if that's possible. Okay. The only way to do that now, okay, is to, if you want to be fully compliant, is to make sure that you download those fonts and then you use Font Pro to load the fonts locally. I recommend you do this anyway, just to be open here. I think it's better to always load as much as you can from your own domain, regardless whether or not anything, for any reason. Okay. So I think that's a best preference, is to always download the font, upload the file to your server, and then use Web Font Pro. Okay. Here, this is a part of the Font Pro stacks. This particular stack is not a part of Foundation 6, but Font Pro integrates with Foundation. Okay. I think that is your best option, even if you care about GDPR privacy or not. Okay. I would do this. That way you don't even need to worry about any privacy or cookie issues, period. It's always loaded from your server. You don't have external dependencies to google.com for your a critical things such as the way your site is designed. Google doesn't go down very often, but it has, right? It has. Google services have gone down. Do you really want to rely your site's design and look based on Google being up? I wouldn't, right? So that's why I always load all the resources that I can from my domain, because if someone's visiting my website, I can ensure that all the files that are on it are accessible, right? So yeah, privacy laws ignored, I think that's best case, period. Now, integrating that Google Fonts swatch with cookie jar, interesting idea. I don't know if that will be possible or not. Something I'll look into. For now, load them locally. So hopefully that answers your question, Steve. Oh, I wanted to share, actually this morning I was on a website and I just saw this. This was the privacy alert, right? You know, I in my demo I have like the one that has like a full paragraph. You don't necessarily need that. This is something just super small and simple. You could totally build this with cookie jar. Totally. It's just a container with round corners, one sentence, a link to your privacy policy. The OK button is the accept. The don't track me is the decline button. Done. Right? Super clean, minimal layout. It's not super annoying. I like this. Okay, I might create a little demo or something with this particular layout, right? Super minimalistic. We all hate these messages, right? And if you have to have it, then yeah, this is a nice one. Good example here. I like it. Franco said, does it apply for Font Awesome too? Yes. So again, with Font Awesome, if you're using, well, I should say, if you're using Font Awesome from Foundation, then you don't need to, then it's already being loaded from your website. Okay. So if you're using Font Awesome 5 via Foundation, you don't need to worry about GDPR because it's getting loaded from your website. All right. So I should note that if you ensure that everything is loaded from your website, from your domain, then guess what? You don't even need a cookie message. Okay. So yeah, if you do the proper work to make sure that your website has nothing loaded externally, or the things that are loaded externally actually don't track your customers' information or data or anything like that, then you don't need that message. So there's that as well. Font Awesome, as long as you're loading it via anything of mine, won't load it for an external domain. Again, Font Awesome and even jQuery and all that jazz, it only matters if you're loading it from external domains. If you're using it from Foundation 6, it loads it locally on your domain, never loads anything external. So you're good to go. Oh, one more thing I should note. Let me go back to the screen. If you want to embed a YouTube video, so my embed stack is an option, okay? But my YouTube stack somewhere. Where is it? Here it is. All right. My YouTube stack, let me just So if you want to load a YouTube video on your page, okay, by default, YouTube has a special domain that doesn't load any of their cookies. Okay, they don't publicize this; it's not really well known. But I use that domain by default with my YouTube stack. So if you're loading a YouTube video with my YouTube stack, it will load it by default from the YouTube no cookie domain. Okay. So there's that. So now whether or not you trust Google's no cookie domain actually doesn't load cookies, I don't know, but you can dive into that, and if you want to trust them or not, it's up to you. But yeah, YouTube no cookie domain, it's a feature of my YouTube stack. And actually this morning I double checked. I will add that as a feature to Video Wall as well. I think that would be a nice feature for Video Wall to automatically convert your images to use Google's no cookie domain. I think that would be nice. So, if you're using YouTube videos and you check this, does that mean you're GDPR compliant? I don't know. Research that. Okay. But it's an option. Okay. The Embed stack does not support the no cookie domain. That's because the way the Embed stack works, it just kind of connects to whatever, it's dynamic. It just connects to the service that says, give me your embed. YouTube gives it the embed. And obviously they don't supply their no cookie domain because they want the cookies, because they want to track you. So there's that. And with that, I think we're done. Oh, let's see. Mr. Len says EU has many threats to business about privacy. Truth is, if you do the basics, you will only ever need be advised to improve, not find thousands. Simple solution rule. All right, there you go. So there we go. Cool. Thanks, Mr. Len. I agree. If you do a little bit of work, and a little bit extra work, you can ensure that most things are not loaded from external domains. And at that point, you don't even need this cookie jar. But if you want cookie jar, go get it. It's really cool. It does the job really good. It's extensible. Allows you to define your layout however you want it. If you want to load it in a light box, or if you want to load it in a little animated things that comes in, it's up to you. You build it. Cookie jars just handles the accept and decline and loading of all the stuff. So there we go. And the Embed integration is pretty slick. I was really happy with that. I'm happy with how that turned out. So cool. Thanks, guys. Go out there, go make some amazing websites. See you on the Weaverspace community. Hopefully we'll see some of you or many of you on Friday at the Hangout. And enjoy Cookie Jar. Take care, guys.